Hi everybody, good afternoon, or good morning, good evening. Moving right along, I want to start topic 1.3 with this video. Topic 1.3 takes us on to the subject of energy and equilibria. And in this clip, I just really want to talk about what an equilibrium or what equilibria are and the main types. I say this every single time. This should be a fairly quick one because it's just going to be a case of me going through a few definitions. And then we'll look at the specifics a little bit later on. Okay, so as usual, I'd like to start by having a quick look at what the syllabus has to say about the subject of equilibrium. I'll make no apologies for this, but there's a little bit of physics involved in this today. I think pretty much the only physics we'll see during this course. But the syllabus says, as you can see here, first of all, we need to talk about the first law of thermodynamics. I won't give you the definition at the moment because we'll come to that in a second. We need to talk about the second law of thermodynamics, the two fundamental laws of the universe with regards to energy. And then number three, we need knowledge of the different types of equilibria and how systems exist in these kind of equilibria. Don't worry, I'll come to the point of what an equilibrium is in a second. And then finally, I don't know if we'll cover this completely in this video. I'll definitely come back to it. Under applications and skills, the syllabus says we need to explain how the laws of thermodynamics apply to ecological systems. Like I said, I just want to concentrate on definitions today, and we'll probably come back to that a little bit later. As usual, above my head, I've got the main keywords. That includes the word equilibria. We need to talk about what that is. And then the four types of equilibrium: static, stable, unstable, steady state. Okay, moving along. Just a few definitions before we get to the keywords above my head. Obviously, you've realised by now most of the systems we'll see in this course are natural systems or ecosystems. We can, as we've seen already, we can lump or we can join systems together. Ecosystems that join together we call biomes. So they're kind of collections of ecosystems with very similar climatic conditions within them. So that would include a desert biome, Arctic biome, temperate forest biome, equatorial rainforest biome, and so on. You also know already that all of these systems, ecosystems and biomes included, are open systems. It's very hard to find a properly closed ecosystem, and the ones we've seen are basically man-made. The guy you can see here, quite a prominent British biologist, James Lovelock, he went one step further and he said we could join biomes together planet-wide, and we could say that the whole planet is one system, one ecosystem. Or he went even further and said that we could say that the world, the Earth, is one living being, and he called that Gaia theory. We'll come back to that later. Okay, a couple of definitions there: biome, biosphere. And these are the two laws of thermodynamics. The first law of thermodynamics says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be conserved and transformed from one form to another. The second law of thermodynamics says that entropy always increases. Entropy is a physicist's word for disorder. So what that means in simple terms is that over time, energy becomes less and less useful. It's not destroyed, but it becomes less and less useful. There's quite a depressing theory of physics called the heat death theory of the universe that says that given enough time, billions upon billions of years, the energy within our universe will become so disordered, less and less useful, that the universe will just kind of fade away into a massive entropy. You can think of entropy as disorder, and one of the fundamental laws of the universe, again, is that entropy always increases. You can't come home and expect that your room will have tidied itself up by itself. Bedrooms don't become more and more tidy over time, they become more and more untidy, more and more dusty, dirty, things break. That's just a fundamental law of the universe. Entropy increases. Okay. So a system needs to be in equilibrium. Equilibrium is the state of being in an unchanging, or as much as possible, an unchanging condition. Again, a law of the universe is the law of inertia, or the law of laziness. Things don't change until you force them to change, unless energy is put in to make them change, or energy is taken out. So equilibrium means things just stay in. I was going to use the word stable, but we don't want to use that word in that context. Systems remain unchanged as much as possible, although the entropy in them will increase unless you're putting more energy into that system. Given enough time, a system will always destroy itself because entropy will increase so much unless energy is put into that system from an external source. We need to talk about 4 kinds of equilibrium: equilibrium singular, and equilibria plural, by the way. So there are 4 kinds of equilibrium: static, stable, unstable, steady state, as I've already said in my keywords. All right, let's go through them, not necessarily in that order. Okay, the first system we can look at is a stable equilibrium. The y-axis here represents the state of the system. It's very generic. It could mean any kind of state. If the system you're looking at is the human body, for example, it could be temperature. If you're looking at an ecosystem, it could be the population of a specific species, population size. It's purposely vague, so it depends on what kind of system you're looking at. So in a stable system, unchanged, there's some kind of disturbance. So that could be vigorous exercise of your body that changes your body temperature, or you could go into a freezer, changes your body temperature. If you're talking about an ecosystem, it could be a forest fire. There's this disturbance, the equilibrium changes, but then it comes back to its starting point again. So a stable system is one where it suffers a disturbance and it comes back to its starting point. Now, I don't want to go into the reasons for that yet, but we'll see later that the reason for that is feedback. Feedback mechanisms will bring a stable equilibrium back to its starting point again. Okay, the reason I put this guy here, this was a toy when I was a baby. It was called a Weeble. I'm sure you've got similar things around today. And if you knock him over, because of the way it's weighted at the bottom, it just flops back to its starting position all the time. You can't knock them over. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. That was the advertising slogan. So a stable equilibrium wobbles, but it comes back to its starting point. This is a different kind of equilibrium. This is an unstable equilibrium. In an unstable equilibrium, there's a disturbance, but rather than coming back to its starting point again, it goes to a new equilibrium. We'll see a few examples of this as we go through the course. A really obvious example that we see time and time again is in global warming, or climate change, or human-made climate change. As the planet heats up, we have less and less ice at the poles. Because there's less and less ice at the poles, less and less heat is reflected, and we're expected, because of that, to reach a tipping point where basically, hopefully this won't happen, but it seems we're heading that direction, we'll reach a new temperature condition for the planet where the planet is incapable of getting us back to the original stable equilibrium. That's a different kind of feedback. This is called positive feedback. Not necessarily a good thing, despite the word positive, but it's going from one equilibrium to a different equilibrium. Okay. The fourth one, this is static equilibrium. So in the previous 2 slides, I showed the equilibrium as a straight line, completely unchanging. Static equilibrium is an equilibrium where there is no change whatsoever. Now, you already know, we talked about open systems. All of the systems, with a few exceptions, are going to be open systems. So you have matter and energy coming in from outside the system. So therefore, a static equilibrium is impossible. A static equilibrium like this is only possible if there's no input of energy and no input of matter from the outside. And you know already that's called an isolated system, isolated conditions. And you already know that that's not possible. Isolated systems don't exist, with one possible exception, which is possibly the whole universe itself. So that kind of equilibrium is not possible. So therefore, the type of equilibrium we'll see all the time, certainly when we look at ecosystems, will be this type of equilibrium, which we call a steady state. A steady state equilibrium is one where you've got an average value that the system always wants to come back to. So here you'll see that the state of the system, temperature, population, whatever, goes high. Feedback works to bring it back down again. That's called negative feedback, bringing it back to its starting position. Then it goes too low. Feedback, negative feedback again, acts on it to bring it back up again, and so on. So the natural condition is steady state equilibrium, and that's kind of a wobble around a fixed equilibrium value. Okay, so that's as much as I want to go through. I'd like you to go back through the video again, please, at least once, and make sure you understand the meaning of equilibrium or equilibria. And then look at these 4 key terms again. Make sure you're happy with what is static equilibrium, stable, unstable, and steady state. Okay, I hope that was helpful. We'll talk about this more in our classes. Take care, and I will speak to you soon.